Today we're going to talk about dotting your I's because, well, it's just a tiny little dot. It can make a really big difference. So let's dive into this tiny letter and tiny dot and see exactly what I'm talking about. So especially if you use a large size brush pen, you can see how a dot on an I can be very important. When you're doing your letter for your I, you want to pay attention to the size of the downstroke because that is where your I dot actually resides. It resides in line with the downstroke. It's part of the downstroke. So often that dot is not given the importance that it deserves, and it needs to be nice and prominent, just as prominent as your downstroke would be. Now, if you're doing faux ligraphy, pay attention as well to the width of that downstroke because you want to be writing your downstroke dot at that same thickness. But you have a little bit more flexibility with how it looks. You can do a horizontal rectangle, you can do a square that's the same width as your downstroke, or you can make it a vertical rectangle as well, making that I even more prominent on the top. One thing that you probably will want to do, even if you're doing faux ligraphy, is look at how the dot is shaped when you are using a brush pen and try to mimic something like that if you are doing a long, skinny dot. Because you'll notice that it's not perfectly straight on the top and it's not perfectly straight on the bottom. So something that has a little bit of a taper on the bottom is typically how I like to dot my I's when I am doing faux ligraphy. It's still nice and wide, just like the downstroke of your letter, but it has a little bit more of a natural look, tapering in on the bottom. And of course, there's always the ever-present heart for your I that you can go back to from your childhood days. This might not be so much of an issue as you are going through and just writing I's, but when you go to write a word, you might just come along and do two little dots like that. That does not give it all the credit it deserves. Make sure you come along and do a downstroke for each of your I's in your word. Don't let them be an afterthought, but let them be an asset to your overall piece, making them shine with a dot that has punch to it. It's a tiny little thing, but it'll make such a big difference in your word. And keep in mind that tiny tricks like this are things that can set your lettering apart. Make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss a single one, and that you can get all the tips and tricks that you possibly can. If you want to know more than this, you can check out all of my online courses at amandaarneill.com, where you can get full lessons and full courses taking you all the way from A to Z in art and lettering.